Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we're tackling something that's really, well, it's a huge deal in the off-grid and solar world, but it gets misunderstood all the time. We're going to break down the actual real-world engineering you need to properly size a battery bank for a heavy-duty 10-kilowatt inverter system. Whether you're putting together an off-grid cabin, upgrading your current solar setup, or honestly, if you're just kind of geeking out over the physics of power storage, you really need to know how to safely manage the massive forces we're dealing with here.
Okay, let's dive into this. How many batteries do I actually need for a 10-kilowatt inverter? It's literally the #1 question people ask when designing a large backup system. And it sounds like a totally simple question, right? You're probably expecting a simple answer like, oh, just buy 2, or you need 4. But honestly, it's deceptive. This basic little question hides a massive web of engineering realities. And if you get it wrong, we're not just talking about your TV shutting off, we're talking about total system failure, wrecked equipment, or even severe fire hazards.
So, to get this right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the battery sizing myth, move into calculating real DC current, and then break down capacity versus capability. After that, we'll look at parallel battery configurations, and finally, we'll wrap up with wiring and surge safety. All right, part 1, the battery sizing myth, moving beyond simple runtime calculations. Because, most of the advice out there just stops at basic wattage and runtime, and that leaves a huge safety gap.
You see, there's a really stark contrast between how a beginner looks at this and how an engineer looks at this. The beginner just asks, how many batteries do I need? And they usually lean on super simple rules of thumb. Stuff like just match the voltages or figure out the capacity based on the inverter power. Now look, that's an okay starting point, but it completely misses the physical limitations of the hardware itself. The engineering approach, on the other hand, asks the critical question, how many batteries are required to safely deliver the current? That one little distinction, focusing on safe, continuous current delivery instead of just buying enough batteries to turn the lights on, that's exactly how you prevent incredibly expensive and dangerous mistakes.
Which brings us to part 2, calculating real DC current, the hidden mathematical reality. Because to truly grasp why that engineering approach matters, we gotta look at the actual math.
So let's break it down. Your inverter's job is to take DC power from your batteries and convert it into AC power for your house. When your 10-kilowatt inverter is maxed out, pushing out 10,000 watts of AC power, your batteries have to supply that exact same amount of energy on the DC side. Remember basic physics? Power equals voltage times current. So if we flip that around, current equals power divided by voltage. If we take our 10,000 watts and divide it by a standard 48-volt battery bank, we get 208.3 amps. And as a quick aside, this massive number is exactly why 48-volt systems are the standard at this size. I mean, if you tried pulling 10,000 watts from a 12-volt battery, the current would be so ridiculously high, your cables would have to be thicker than your arm. So right from the jump, we are looking at an enormous baseline draw of about 208 amps. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the plot twist. 100% inverter efficiency? Yeah, that's a complete myth. No inverter is absolutely perfect. While it's converting that DC to AC, energy gets lost, mostly burning off as heat. So if we factor in a realistic efficiency rating, say around 90%, that means the inverter actually has to pull even more power from the batteries just to guarantee you get that final 10,000 watts.
So let's redo the math with that in mind. We divide our 10,000 watts by 0.90, which tells us the inverter is actually demanding 11,111 watts of input power. Divide that by our 48 volts and, wow, we land on a terrifying but very real full load current of roughly 231 amps. This number, right here, 231 amps, is the absolute core challenge we have to solve. Moving that much current generates an immense amount of heat and physical stress on your system.
Let's move to part 3, capacity versus capability, or why just storing energy isn't enough. Because knowing we need to pull 231 amps brings us to a really crucial crossroads. These two concepts, capacity and capability, get mixed up all the time, and it drives me crazy. Capacity is just your stored energy. It's measured in watt hours, and it dictates your runtime, basically how long the battery will last. Let's say you have a single 48-volt, 100-amp-hour battery. That gives you 4.8 kilowatt-hours of capacity. If you hook that up to a 10-kilowatt load, the math says you'll get about 29 minutes of runtime. Simple enough. But capability? That is an entirely different beast. Capability is the battery's actual physical ability to safely push out the continuous current you need, measured in amps, without overheating or failing entirely. You could totally have a battery with enough capacity to run for 29 minutes, but if it doesn't have the capability to output the required current, it's not even going to run for 29 seconds. And here is the brutal bottleneck. Most single 48-volt 100-amp-hour batteries absolutely cannot continuously deliver 230 amps, period. If you try to force a standard single battery to push out that much power, one of two things is going to happen. If you've got a modern lithium iron phosphate battery with a battery management system, or BMS, the internal computer will sense the overcurrent and just instantly shut the battery down. Boom, your whole house goes dark. Now, if the battery doesn't have a BMS, it's going to rapidly overheat, tank its lifespan, and could very well start a fire. So, long story short, one single battery is just not going to cut it.
So how do we fix it? That brings us to part 4, parallel battery configurations, dividing the load for safety.
And this brilliantly illustrates the engineering solution to our massive 231 amp problem. The sheer magic of parallel wiring is that when we wire identical 48-volt batteries together, we aren't just pooling their energy capacity for longer runtime. We are actually dividing the current demand equally across all of them. Look at the breakdown. One battery takes the full punishing brunt of 230 amps. But add a second battery, now they're sharing the load, dropping the demand to a much more manageable 115 amps per battery. Step up to 3 batteries, it's 77 amps each. And by the time we have 4 batteries, the physical, thermal stress on each individual unit plummets to just 58 amps. You can see that dramatic drop right here. By the time we hit a 4-battery configuration, we've essentially slashed the stress on any single battery down to just a quarter of the total load. And this is exactly why a 4-battery setup is the gold standard for large residential systems. The current is safely distributed instead of being dangerously concentrated in one spot. And hey, as a really fantastic bonus, your total energy capacity jumps up to a super robust 19.2 kilowatt hours.
Finally, let's wrap up with part 5, wiring and surge safety, protecting your investment. Because look, spreading that massive load across multiple batteries definitely introduces a whole new set of physical requirements. When you are moving 200 plus amps through any system, your cables suddenly become just as important as your batteries. Using undersized wiring, that is a literal recipe for disaster. It kicks off this terrifying cascading failure. First, thin cables create high resistance, which leads to voltage drops. That resistance then generates extreme heat buildup, which, you guessed it, significantly raises your fire risk. On top of that, if your cables are different lengths, the current won't share evenly. One battery is going to work way harder than the rest, leading to premature wear. You absolutely must use perfectly equal, massively thick cables and properly sized bus bars to ensure everything is sharing the current safely. Oh, and we can't forget about the invisible loads, surges. So many of the things we plug in do not start at their normal running power. Heavy-duty stuff, like air conditioners, well pumps, large compressors, they require surge loads that can be 2 to 5 times their standard running power. Think about that. That demands incredible overhead capability from your battery bank. A configuration that looks perfectly fine on paper for a continuous steady load might completely buckle and trigger a BMS shutdown the exact second your AC compressor kicks on, simply because it couldn't handle that massive 5x spike.
All right, so what is the big actionable takeaway here? Before you spend a single dime on equipment for a 10-kilowatt setup, I want you to verify 3 very specific manufacturer ratings. First, check the total energy capacity so you know you have the runtime you need. Second, absolutely confirm the continuous discharge capability of the batteries. And third, check the strict BMS current limits. If your batteries cannot handle 231 continuous amps plus that critical overhead for surges, you've got to rethink your architecture and add more batteries in parallel. So the crucial point is exactly what we have right here. Battery sizing is not only about stored energy, it is also about delivering power safely and reliably. Seriously, understanding that fundamental difference, that is what separates a beautifully engineered, flawlessly running setup from a system that is constantly throwing fault codes, shutting down, or creating real hazards. It all comes down to respecting the physics of the hardware. To wrap things up, I want to leave you with a little homework, a provocative thought to test everything we just covered. If you already have a 10-kilowatt inverter, or maybe you're sketching one out right now, what exact battery bank are you running? Look at your system's voltage, find the amp-hour rating, count your batteries, and run that math we just learned. Are you safely dividing that 230-plus amp load, or are you pushing your hardware dangerously close to the edge? Think about it, crunch those numbers, and really take control of your system's engineering. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, stay safe, and as always, respect the math.